Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to pick up on some anecdotal evidence of a couple of the big problems Labour face in the Runcorn by-election, as reported in The Guardian today. And although the quotes I'm going to pick up on are just from individuals, we know that they are views held fairly widely by people accustomed to voting Labour but now attracted to Reform UK. And they're going to be problems for Labour in the long term. I'd like to go over two of these, explain how I see where the strategic failures have come in and why Labour need to be much more focused on winning all competitions, because right now they look like a top football side who are only putting effort into the big games and wondering why they're struggling in the league. But first, for daily news and commentary, please hit the subscribe button to stay notified. So first things first, if you are voting tomorrow and you want to vote tactically against the Tories and Reform UK, I've put a link in the description below for the website you will need. But anyway, yes, Labour under Keir Starmer. Bit of a massive contradiction at times. So possibly because some of the key advisors were very successful in their role in opposition. So they've got a lot of respect from the leadership and a lot of trust is placed in them. But they are lacking in their new roles in government. For example, it has been revealed that Keir Starmer took the Hartlepool by-election loss in 2021 so badly that he nearly quit. An insane way to look at it. The Conservatives had their vaccine bounce at the time. Hartlepool had been turning Conservative for a very long time. Young people were leaving for better jobs elsewhere. It was just one of those old knackered towns that was leaving a higher concentration of demographics who have always sort of voted Tory anyway. It wasn't changing attitudes, it was changing demographics that were swinging Hartlepool towards the Conservatives. The council had already flipped. That had already flipped, and Labour only won the seat in 2019 due to a strong challenge from the Brexit Party taking a load of Tory votes. Then I gather Keir Starmer was pissed off last summer when he won the election. What? It's because he didn't win as many seats as Blair did in 97. Now, that's a little bit much. I mean, I approve of having a leader with a will to win. But, too often the problem is that Labour, a lot of people in Labour hold that some subjective view of principles is more important than actually putting those principles into practice. Labour too often are happier protesting than governing. So it is good to have a leader who is so fixated on winning in a sense that he gets butthurt at not winning some arbitrary target of seats way beyond practical benefit. But if that is his attitude, and I do think that's a little bit too much, but if that is his attitude, why has Labour's approach to these local elections tomorrow been so piss poor? For me, it's like when you see a big football team where the players really put in a top performance against their main rivals, but are noticeably off the pace against the minnows, so they can't really be bothered. And because they're not giving it 100%, they then end up maybe with the odd draw or a loss against these lesser teams, and then that costs them the league. That's how Labour appears to me right now. One key election tomorrow is the Runcorn by-election. Now, this is a Westminster seat, not a local election, but the issues are the same ones that are going to cost Labour votes in all areas where they do go to the polls tomorrow. A report in The Guardian really hit the nail on the head. It quoted some people. Okay, they're not necessarily, it wasn't a cross-section of society, but they quoted some people, men essentially, at the pub, and what they had to say about Labour. Now, if I had those people in front of me, I could explain to them how they'd been conned, how some of the things they were saying weren't actually true, but they're not in front of me. And what's more, there's no way for even Labour to sit down with every single voter who gets conned by Farage and the Tory press. So as I go through these grievances, I'm going to set out where I think Labour went wrong, because you can't complain, oh, those people have been lied to. What are you going to do about it? Even though the claims are bogus, they wouldn't have been possible to make these claims had Labour adopted different policies. So first off, one big one, winter fuel allowance. And before I go over these two, I want to make the point is there are at the moment multiple grievances that people have against Labour, and some of them are real. A lot of the big ones, however, in a few years' time, when people realise what Labour are currently doing that they're not aware of, like, for example, boosting workers' rights, then Labour will get the benefit of that. People recognise that. The two I'm going to go over in this video are ones that are still going to be a problem for Labour at the next election because of their policies. They're not making any moves to neutralise these two big grievances. So winter fuel allowance, first of all. So when Labour announced that they were means testing it, they weren't cutting it, they weren't abolishing it, as some people are saying, they were means testing it. I had no objection to the principle, but I said at the time, this is a bit of a bold move, as would have been described in Yes Minister. In other words, this is going to cost you votes. Now, sometimes a government will sacrifice votes in order to do something big that will either be just good for the country, even if unappreciated, or win more votes as a consequence. So Labour were trying to say, oh, we're doing this to save money so we can put it into the NHS. So they're trying to argue, OK, we're going to piss off some people here, but we're going to be able to boost NHS performance and win those same votes or equivalent votes back here. But the means testing of the winter fuel allowance did not do this. Lots of people suddenly started quoting the 17th century French economist, Colbert, who described taxation as like plucking a goose, where you want to extract the maximum amount of feathers with the minimum amount of hissing. Reeves saved very little indeed from this policy, so not many feathers, but it became a huge negative story for Labour, so lots of hissing, which continues to this day, even though the Tory media were not able to highlight any cases of where anyone suffered this winter as a result of the policy. People still feel aggrieved by it. Even if they had their own heating on full as normal, because they could afford it, they do not like the fact that the year before they had this 200 quid and now they don't. Frankly, it just wasn't worth it. Labour think that those voters will come back when they see how much everything has improved, but some really won't. Pensioners are actually better off now in real terms than before the election, but that hasn't stopped Labour losing lots of pensioner support. Labour took something from them, and that's all the media will talk about, and it's all those pensioners will think about. And it didn't even save enough money to make any serious difference on spending that would win those or similar votes back. I make no comment on whether it was a good policy or not. There are pros and cons. I'm neutral on it. But it was risky politics. And because Labour refused to engage with the public via their own social media messaging, where they could put out unfiltered commentary to the public directly to counter the misinformation from the established media, they turned it from risky politics to stunningly bad politics. Labour have lost a lot of votes because of this policy, which gained them materially nothing. Rachel Reeves, in her budget, could have kept the winter fuel allowance universal like it was, reduced the NHS budget boost by $1 billion, because remember, she's boosted the NHS budget. She could have just reduced that boost by $1 billion. No one would have ever known. Not a single person would have complained. The winter fuel allowance would have remained in place. Labour would have been able to champion the fact that they've given many more, tens of thousands of extra pensioners pension credit, which is worth thousands of pounds a year, and nobody would have complained, oh, but the NHS budget went down by $1 billion, because it hasn't got, it still would have gone up. Then there's the small boats issue coming up. So that's the second one. One guy said they were fine with legal migrants, but not illegal migrants. Now, again, I could explain to him that if they're claiming asylum, they're not illegal immigrants. People are being told that these group of people are illegal immigrants, and they're not at all. But it would be like pissing in the wind. The Tories and their media have firmly established this concept. So what are we to learn? Well, this guy, like a lot of people, openly not anti-asylum. They are anti-taking the piss, which is how they see unauthorised crossings. Solution? Labour should establish a processing centre in northern France. If someone has a credible claim, transport them to Britain for the rest of the process. All legal, every asylum seeker in Britain will have needed official recognition that they have a decent case, and anyone crossing in a small boat could be sent back perfectly legally, because it would be to the processing centre. You would still not satisfy those who are actually anti-asylum, but there is no way to satisfy them. But you would satisfy those who just take umbrage at what is seen as bypassing rules. Don't waste time on a strategy which relies on telling millions of people that the mainstream media is lying to them, and you're not going to stop the boats by just tackling the smuggling gangs that will always just keep popping up. Right? Just remove the visible issues they have. In a few years' time, it is possible to have no asylum seekers in hotels, no small boats crossing the channel, just as was the case before the Tories last came to power. But Labour are refusing to do this. They are accepting, they've said it, they are accepting boat crossings as an acceptable consequence of their policies for years to come. This is not the attitude of a leadership which is focused on winning to the point where they get upset at not winning enough seats, even when they won more than enough seats for all practical purposes. I can't get my head around this. The same leader, Keir Starmer, who nearly quit after losing a by-election he was never going to win, or not getting as many seats as a way more charismatic Labour leader. I cannot understand how that person can be so sanguine about pissing votes away over this. And because I don't think Keir Starmer has multiple personalities, I can only conclude it's because there's a terrible mismatch between policy making and political strategy occurring. That is a failure of leadership within the advice team. And this is ultimately responsible of the people in number 10 and the Cabinet Office. There are two key issues here, which are a serious risk to Labour in the long term. And because of their policies, there's still going to be two key issues come the next election. These are going to be vote-losing issues for them at the next election. It won't cost them the next election. I'll discuss some of the issues on that point some point in the future, maybe this week, maybe tomorrow, who knows? Depends on what the news is. But these are the sort of issues which will cost Labour in local elections as well as by-elections, and they will cost Labour in a future general election once their rapid progress dies down, which it will. You cannot keep making huge steps on progress. There comes a point where you fix the big stuff and the rest is less easy for a public to notice, especially if the government are really bad at talking to the public. And I worry that Labour will listen to comments like this and they conclude that either these people are just wrong, ignore them, or worse, that they should just ape the rhetoric of Farage to try and confuse these voters, instead of just drilling down to the core issue and removing the visible symptoms of the grievance. Taking the winter fuel allowance, they knew it wasn't going to save much money. They knew it was going to cause a huge political fuss. There's probably nothing they can do about that now. That's it. It's permanently gone. The small boats issue is not. They could actually deal with that, but they've set themselves on a course, a formal policy of not dealing with the small boats issue. You know, I saw someone describing Trump as tackling imaginary issues with policies that can't possibly work. And Labour is sort of doing the same thing here. Tackling imaginary issues, well, if the public believe in them or not, then politically they do exist. But with solutions that cannot possibly work, you're just playing into Farage's hands. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. If you've enjoyed the video, please click the like button and subscribe for further content. If you'd like to support the channel further, you can click the join button for memberships. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.